I tell you, I put silk, sugar-free, oat milk creamer, vanilla, cinnamon in my coffee. It's not good. It's not good. Go for the Oatly sweet cream. I think it is in a little purple thing. Oh, you didn't think you asked for a review of vegan non-dairy creamers? Hey, CNFers, it's Creative Nonfiction Podcast. If you're in Eugene on Sunday, October 26th, the fourth and final live podcast recording of 2025 will take place at Gratitude Brewing at 1 p.m. We started something special with these live pods, and they're going to keep on going. I'll be interviewing Jason Brown, author of Character Witness, a memoir, and Jay Michaels will be handling book sales, and I'll be making it rain. Also, call for submissions for the next issue of the audio magazine is up. The theme is codes. For more information and submission guidelines, visit brendanamara.com. Hey, you got 1 week. You got 1 week to get me your essays, man. And I'm coming down hard on that deadline. Maybe not, but assume it.
You just have to be your own pimp, your own whore, your own publicist.
Oh, hey, CNF, it's the Creative Nonfiction Podcast, the show where I talk to tellers of two tales about the show where I talk to tellers of two tales about the true tales they tell. I'm Brendan O'Mara. Nothing to see here. Today we have Jeff Pearlman returning to the show to talk about his 11th book, his latest book, Only God Can Judge Me, The Many Lives of Tupac Shakur, Mariner Books. Jeff has made a career out of being a sports writer, so when I heard he had turned his biographical eye toward a hip-hop icon from the 1990s, I was especially intrigued by how he would approach it. It's the kind of book he could pursue after having proved himself 10 times before, and with a few of his books becoming coveted New York Times bestsellers, it gives you a certain cachet. It gives you some house money. He interviewed close to 700 people for this book. That's the rigor. That's how you do this. That is how it's done. Show notes to this episode and more at brendanamara.com. Hey, there you can peruse for hot blogs and sign up for my two very important newsletters, the flagship Rage Against the Algorithm and Pitch Club. Welcome to pitchclub.substack.com. New Pitch Club on November 1st will feature Tracy Slater's pitch letter to a literary agent that landed representation for her book Together in Manzanar. Oh, you thought Pitch Club was only for long-form features? You got another thing coming. Also, if you care to support the podcast with a few dollar bills, visit patreon.com/CNFpod. There are some rad perks, but most are just happy to throw a few bucks in the guitar case. I hosted the first CNF and Half Happy Hour for paying members, and it went not good. I hung out by myself for 30 minutes, then closed the window. Did you ever invite people to your birthday parties growing up and nobody showed? Yeah, me too. Well, more beer for me. And now, not then. Maybe. So Jeff is back. First time he was on, I think I annoyed him a bit with my questions on craft. He kind of bristled at the idea that it was a craft, which maybe he thought was too cute a word for it. To him, it's fucking work. You make all the calls, then you make more. You go to the locations, you knock on doors. It's journalism, it's reporting. You report. It has more to do with tenacity and rigor than art. So I made sure I steered clear of things that felt too crafty this time around. Jeff is all over the place. And by that I mean he's got a YouTube presence with the Pressbox Chronicles. He's something of a TikTok wonderkind. With more than 300,000 followers. He has a podcast, a long-running podcast since 2017, I believe. The two writers, Slinging Yang. Still waiting for my invite. A political Substack called The Truth OC, and his writing journalism Substack, The Yang Slinger, which is resurrected, I believe. He's a writer in his 50s, and he's tremendously nimble with a lot of this technology. He understands, even with his profile and his track record, that nobody is going to champion your book like you can. Honestly, we can all take a page out of his book and how he has embraced the ever-changing playbook of book promotion. I wonder if I should join TikTok and just do random reviews of things like my printer paper, this deodorant, books, that apple tree over there. Fuck around and find out. In this conversation, Jeff and I talk about book promotion, finding the little guys, how he handled another Tupac biography publishing during the research for his own book, the misery of it all, conversations he had with Jonathan Eig, the Pulitzer Prize winning author of King a Life, Jeff's favorite version of Tupac, and when he hit the quote, fuck it stage. All great stuff, as you might come to expect from speaking to Jeff Pearlman. His audio was a bit muddy. It's not as great as I would have liked, but I think the message carries the day. Parting shot on whether book events are even worth it, but for now, let's cue up the montage.
That is horseshit. That has nothing to do with what I'm talking about.
Pleasing, I guess, to a biographer than that they would be able to look in the coffin of their subject.
You were the Dan Patrick of creative nonfiction. How about that?
This is going to have to interest somebody somewhere other than me.
Maybe a good place to that lead off would be like, you're really ginning up the book promotion machine, and you've done this as your 11th book, and just how are you thinking about book promotion these days?
It's so different than it's ever been. I've been talking about this nonstop to people. I had my Bo Jackson book came out 2 years ago, and in book PR world, that's a lifetime ago. And even like my first book came out 20 years ago about the '86 Mets, and I remember like. That book comes out, and what are you hoping for? Okay, newspaper reviews. You're sending it to the columnist of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and the LA Times and the Baltimore Sun, and you're hoping they write about it in print. And through the years, Walter Payton book came out maybe 12 years ago. Front cover of Sports Illustrated. The excerpt was literally the cover. All right, well, that's gold. None of those things would mean anything today.
Yeah.
Like, I would rather have name a rapper. I'd rather have Skilo put out on Instagram how much he loves this book than the cover of Double XL. Like it's weird. I'm thinking it now as a very, very, number one, you have 20 seconds to catch someone's attention at most. Number two, I'm not even sure who's buying books anymore. They are selling, but I'm not sure where. Number three, it's so social media generated, It's crazy. It's so much harder than it used to be.
For sure. Like a few weeks ago, I mean, nothing came of it, but I guess Lance Armstrong was in Eugene, and he went up to Pre's Rock and like took his picture there. And like a friend of mine he's like, hey, you got to reach out to Lance and see if he'll like get a book in his hands. And then I reached out to my, Mariner team. I'm like, hey, Lance was in Eugene. Like, reach out to his people and see if he can get a book in his hand, and maybe he'll shout it out. And like that would carry more weight, like you said, than a review in the New York Times, as much as that strokes our own ego, and that's pretty cool. Like, yeah, the influencer market for book promotion is kind of where it's at.
It's just very weird. And the other thing is, like, it's so warped that, like, Lance Armstrong probably wouldn't post it because he's not getting paid to post it.
You're right.
And that's the other thing. Like, all these influencers, they're not just being like, that's the thing. Most of these influencers are not like, oh, I just had this great peanut butter. I'm going to tell you guys about it. It's this great peanut butter is paying me to post it. So what I have found, honest to God, this is the truth. So I, for the past year and a half, have been a TikTok machine. And it started as a lark, and I'm approaching 300,000 followers on TikTok. And I really do believe you have to generate and generate and generate. I have a YouTube show called The Pressbox Chronicles. It stemmed off of TikTok. And I'm doing Tupac episodes mixed in with sports episodes. Like, you just have to be your own pimp, your own whore, your own publicist. That's it. That's all you can do, because everyone else is taking money to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, given that you came from like such a different, book promotion ecosystem to this, how have you come to really embrace it when a lot of other authors bristle against it?
Because I don't have a choice. Like, the moment I decided to write books for a living is a moment, inadvertently, I became my own publicist. That's just the reality. There's a moment I became my own publicist, and the methods change over time, but the reality doesn't change. And that is, your publishing company is going to assign you a publicist. That publicist will be working on 5 or 6 other books at the same time. You are the one who dug into the subject. You're the one who interviewed media people. You're the one, like, you have to. So when I hear people who are like, I'm not getting on TikTok, I'm not getting on Blue Sky, I'm like, that's fine. Your book isn't going to sell unless you get struck by some magic lightning bolt. So I don't see an option. I don't see another option. If I, given the choice, I could be doing this or I could not be doing this, I probably wouldn't. But I don't see another choice.
Yeah.
And if I'm not going to fight for my own book, who is?
Absolutely. And this latest book is your 11th, and the way you deeply report, you find hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, and beat the phones to death. In it, that's a big machinery to go into reporting out a book, definitive text that you go into. What is easier and what is still very challenging about starting a book?
Oh, I mean, all of it is challenging. I don't know what's easy about it.
Yeah.
It's, to me, the grind has never changed. Like for me personally, the grind has never changed. The one thing I'm going to do, look, there are many people walking this earth who know more about Tupac than I do. There are people who knew Tupac personally. There are people who had relationships with him. They're hip hop experts, right? I'm a hip hop fan. I'm not a hip hop expert. So what's the one thing I can do? I can try to talk to everybody. I'm going to go where he grew up and I'm going to track down all his classmates I can find. He spent, a year and a half in Marin City, did a senior of high school living in Marin City, California. And I drove there and I knocked on his door where he grew up. I sat with the main crack dealer in Marin City during the time. I spoke with the other crack dealer who taught him about the game in Marin City. Went to a diner with that guy, the crack dealer, and his grandson. Like, the one thing I can do is I can bust my ass and just try to interview everybody. That's it. That's the one thing in my control. So that has not changed. And even like whatever AI bot you find, an AI bot now can construct a book. AI bots are constructing books, but they can't go out there, at least not in 2025, track down the crack dealer and interview him.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. What is step one for you when you embark on a big biography with like a strong central figure like Tupac?
well, step one is go to eBay and buy everything ever written about the person.
Mhm.
That's true. The step number one. So every book that's ever been written, magazines, that you can go on eBay and find old magazines, hip hop magazines that are no longer in print, Tupac articles. So that's a big step one. Step two is I have a subscription to the website newspapers.com, which is this enormous, enormous database. And I will go through the database from the day he was born in 1971 to the day he died in 1996, day by day, and build this enormous archive of everything. Because you don't just want to know about the times Tupac recorded All Eyes on Me. I want to know about the time he went into a pizza place and was spotted by a bunch of fans and signed autographs. So the time he was looking for an apartment in LA and this realtor worked with him. So the only way to do that, again, is roll up your sleeves and go day by day through his life and his mom's life and his sister's life. So those are the things I do very early on.
Yeah, and as you're trolling eBay and whatever sources to get everything ever written, and then you see the glut of that.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you then figure out the framing to make your book different?
I never outline anything. So
Mhm.
I'm like a bad example of organizational skills. I don't have any. The thing I always think, honest to God, it goes back. I kind of think of it as my Brett Favre philosophy, which is I wrote a book about Brett Favre. And somewhere in Packers camp in like 1993, there was some running back from Bucknell. I say this all the time. Some running back from Bucknell who was there for a week and a half. And he's never going to forget his week and a half in Packers camp. And he's going to remember the time Brett Favre threw him a screen pass and patted him on the butt and said, "Great job, Bucknell." That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Brett Favre's never going to remember that guy. 99 out of 100 times. We'll never remember that guy even walked the earth. So for me, one of the keys is finding all the people who had these slivers of moments with Tupac. Like this is random, but I tracked down the woman who worked at the front desk of the hotel where he stayed in Southern California when they were filming Poetic Justice. And she remembered having to go to his room because it was super noisy and there was weed smoke everywhere. And she had to knock on the door and say, "Mr. Shakur, could you?" Those people are really, really important to me. And like, okay, Tupac was in Juice. Everyone's going to call Omar Epps, who was one of his co-stars in Juice. That's a natural thing. It's understandable. I did it too. He didn't talk to me. How many people are going to call the production assistant? How many people are going to call the guy who held the thing and said action? Those are my people because they were there too. The way you write a different book and a different narrative is finding the little people who have never been talked to before, but have the same memory. Omar Epps has been on multiple channels talking about Tupac. The guy who says action, he only talked to me.
Absolutely, yeah. When I spoke with Ian O'Connor about that too, and doing a big biography on some very big central figure, say Belichick, you're not going to get Brady, but numbers 50 through 53 on the roster, they were all in those meetings too,
Yep.
and those are the guys. That's your point.
That's 100 million%. People, I don't understand how any biographer misses that one. To me, it's the most obvious thing in the world. It really is. And like, I preach that shit all the time. Like, you don't need. I wrote Showtime. Showtime became an HBO show that put my kids through college. Magic, Kareem, and Pat Riley did not talk to me for that book. But you know who did? Every backup. Wes Matthews and Billy Thompson and Mike Smrek. And those guys were in the same meetings at the same time as those guys. So find your little guys. They're more important. Magic has talked to 1 million people. Mike Smrek has not.
Interviewing close to 700 people for this book, it's just one of those numbers that blows your hair back if you're so lucky to have hair.
Neither of us do.
Yeah, right. Yep. And how do you keep all of that straight? Your transcripts, cleaning those up, and keeping them in some degree of order so you can access it.
I'm really bad at it. Well, this I'm okay. Number one, I do something super grandpa-y, and it goes against all my environmental tendencies, which is I print out my transcripts.
Mm-hmm.
So I do folders, literal folders, not online folders. And I'll have like Tupac went to Baltimore School for the Arts, for example. I got the yearbooks when he was there, and I will literally make a Word file, old me, of every classmate in the yearbook, every classmate, not just classmates, student, teachers, principals, janitors, etc. And then I'll go one by one, call them. If I get an interview, if I don't get an interview, I just put like an X next to it. If I get an interview, I put a star next to it, print it out, put it in the folder. Then when it's time to write the Baltimore chapters, I get the folders, I underline stuff, highlight stuff, star stuff, move it around, move this one here, that one there. But for me, it's all paper, moving paper. I once talked to Howard Bryant, a great biographer about this.
Yeah.
And I think he thought I was insane because in 2025, it just isn't logical, but it's the only way my brain works.
Yeah. Yeah. I like printing out things too, but I always have the digital reference because the Control F just being like, where was this conversation?
Yeah, I do that too. I do it. Yeah. Like if I'm writing about Tupac went to a Heavy D show, we'll just say he went to a Heavy D concert. Then obviously I'll search all my files, Heavy D, then pull out the files after finding which files it's in. So it's kind of a mix of digital and print.
Yeah. Yeah. And you, and looking at the acknowledgments too, your father passed away while you were reporting this book and writing it, and you see, it impacted the project in multiple ways. Like you wrote Hurt. So, and just, take us to that. And just, he was so integral just to your obviously your upbringing, but even your professional life. So in writing Hurt, like, what was the loss you were dealing with through this project?
Well, my dad was my closest friend by far. I dedicated the book to him. Like I wrote to Stanley Pearlman, the original G. He would have no idea what that means. And I used a Tupac line. I said, I can picture you in heaven with a blunt and a brew. And my dad did not really drink beer and he never smoked a blunt, but he would have liked that. My dad in 1986, my dad was a CPA turned executive search guy. And he wrote his own book called Conquering the Corporate Career. And he self-published it. And it had as great an influence on my life as anything ever of any sort. We would go to the local bookstore and we would move the books to the bestseller section when nobody was looking. I was so proud of him as a little kid. I was 14 when that thing came out, for writing that book. And my dad, two subjects my dad did not give two shits about are sports and hip hop, like zero. He read all of my books. He would have read this book. He talked to me about the books. Talked about the process. He would send out the grandfatherly email to all his friends, talk to people at the Rotary about it. And, him dying is probably the hardest thing I've ever dealt. Is probably the hardest thing I've ever dealt with, except for 9/11. And him not being here for it is, it's horrible. It's really horrible for me. It sucks. Even now, it's just like, he just had a greater, nobody's had a greater influence on my life than my dad. No one.
Yeah, one of your newsletters you wrote about him in this self-publishing thing, and just in pulling out his letters to the editors, of which he used a different pen name too. And you were he had a really good snappy voice, and it's definitely something that I think influenced your work too.
Yeah, my dad was a better writer than I am. I'm not just saying that, he really was. And he the thing I mean, my favorite thing of all time, which you just referenced, is one time he was funny in a sly way. He was funny. My dad taught me a really important lesson, which is you don't have to be present for a joke to be funny. You don't have to hear the punchline. You could just know it exists. Like when I was a kid, my dad and I once were in Washington, D.C., and we took a political sign off of a telephone pole and hung it up in our hometown of Mailpack, New York. And nobody knew the joke existed except for us. We just thought it was funny that this political sign was hanging up in Mailpack that belonged in Washington. And my dad one time wrote a letter to the New York Times complaining about something in relation to aviation. And he signed it, I don't remember, I think he signed it Stanley Pearlman. And then he wrote a letter disagreeing with his letter, used his business name, and that got published too. And that was like the greatest thing ever. That was, and a good lesson, honestly, a good lesson. You don't have to be there for the punchline. Something can be funny without you seeing the end result of it.
Yeah. And you also wrote that is, as we've alluded to, your 11th work of nonfiction, and by far the most daunting. And you were actually warned by a multitude of people that delving into the hip hop universe would be all layers of challenging and weird. And you go like skateboarding atop a puddle of diluted applesauce while trying to grasp the horns of a 600-pound bull, hopped up on Skittles and meth. So yes, take us to this experience.
All right. First, I want to say thank you for asking me about my dad. I actually really appreciate that.
Of course.
Yeah, he was a good man. Someone said to me, someone who knew Tupac well, I won't out this person, said to me, nobody escapes Tupac unscathed. Like nobody escapes the Tupac universe unscathed. And she was right. Like it is a land of craziness. First of all, I was told early on, you're going to have a lot of people ask you for money to be interviewed, which is understandable. I don't blame people for asking for money. That was not incorrect. Like a lot of people asked for money. I didn't pay a single person. I was actually told by one person, you'll never get anyone to talk unless you pay them. And that proved not to be true. The thing about hip hop and probably music in general is it is a land of boastfulness and great exaggeration. And you really have to narrow down. There's a lot of people who are like, man, me and Pac were blah, 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 blah. Me and Pac were blah, 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 blah. And a lot of times, if you look into the story, it's not quite that. You know, time exaggerates, legend exaggerates, proximity legend exaggerates. So I found that really kind of daunting. And he was just, I mean, you probably saw it with Prefontaine. When someone dies young, they become mythical.
Yeah.
They do. They just become mythical. And their legend, in a way, their death is a character in and of itself, and their legend is a character in and of itself. And people jump onto that legend. And it's very, very hard after a while to separate what is legend and what is fact, what is boastfulness and what is truthfulness. I just found with Tupac, that was extremely, extremely difficult. And the key is to find 3 or 4 people who can be your guides, people who are just like solid rocks. And for me, with Tupac, there's a woman, Yasmin Fula, who was kind of his godmother, but really, she's former Black Panther, close with his mama, Fenny. She was amazing for me. Another was Leila Steinberg, who was his early sort of mentor, discoverer, just a salt of the earth woman. And also his sister, Setchwa, who was a very tough interview, but a very real human being. So if you can get a couple people like that, it helps a lot.
Yeah, you bringing up those 3, you know, there's something, you said there's something jarring in being approached by a stranger to discuss a lost loved one, but Yasmin, Set, and Leela introduced me to worlds largely uncharted. It's like that, you just bring them up, like those people are so integral. Like, how were you able to lobby them to get you into that uncharted territory?
All right, so it's interesting. Layla, I didn't think would talk to me just because she's been besieged a lot. And she turned out being just awesome, as helpful as could be. Really nice person. Doesn't even live that far away from me. Really liked the idea of someone trying to write an authentic book about Tupac. Wasn't afraid of there being warts, etc. Yasmin is a former Black Panther. She's one of my favorite human beings on the planet. I met her. There's a writer who wrote a great Tupac, Shakur family book named Santi Elijah Holly. And Santi had a book event, and he's like, I think Yasmin's coming. But she's really tough to she's just guarded, right? She's great, but she's guarded. And I approached her and we talked in the parking lot and she agreed to talk with me. And she's been awesome. In fact, some of the best photos in the book were supplied by Yasmin. And Yasmin has trauma because her son was a member of the Outlaws and he died young. And she has to carry that with her, which is very tough. And Set is tough. Like Set, Tupac's sister, has taken so much shit through the years from people affiliated with Tupac, from the estate, from people talking garbage about her, and she has to live with the trauma of her own upbringing, which was very traumatic,
Yeah.
the loss of a brother, and never being able to escape the loss of your brother because you're reminded of it every single day. I didn't think she would talk to me. I had a phone conversation with her. She lives in the South, and I drove down to New Orleans. I did one of those things you would appreciate, actually. I was in Lumberton, North Carolina, and I told her I was kind of nearby. And technically, North Lumberton and New Orleans are nearby because you can drive there. But it was a long ass drive. And she's like, all right, well, I'm free tomorrow or something. And I was like, all right, I'll be there. So I drove like 13 hours straight from Lumberton to New Orleans to sit down with Set. And she was amazing. She was amazing. So that's how I did it.
Yeah. That's well, and you bring up a Fenny a little while ago, and the first part of the book is very integral of her, the way you sketch her out, and just in order to understand Tupac, like how important was it that we really get to know a Fenny and her worldview and where she comes from?
Oh man, Afeni Shakur should be taught in history books. I'm not just saying that. I think it's funny. A good friend of mine is Jonathan Iyke. I don't know if you've had him on. He wrote the MLK biography.
I haven't, but I have a quote of his below my monitor that's kind of a North Star for me from, yeah.
Oh, wait, what is it?
It's we talking about King. We turned him into a monument and a national holiday and lost sight of his humanity, so I wanted to write a more intimate book. So that's kind of my North Star for Pre.
Yeah, that's fantastic, actually.
Yeah.
That's great and true, and kind of how it is with this one, too. And we've talked about this, like basically in American public schools, and it's not going to get better under this administration. It's basically like MLK had a dream and we should continue that dream. All right, next. And we'll talk for 20 minutes about slavery, and maybe we'll mention Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X for a second, and that's it. And Afeni Shakur, I mean, just Google the Panther 21 trial, which she represented herself. She didn't have a high school diploma. Basically, law enforcement infiltrates the Black Panthers. They do it in all levels of bullshit. They arrest these 21 Panthers. They put them on trial in New York. Afeni Shakur turns down legal representation because the woman has this like soft voice and she doesn't think she's going to do her justice, white attorney. And she represents herself while pregnant with Tupac. And every day she's brought back to jail and brought to trial and brought to jail and brought to trial. And they're not feeding her properly. And she's pregnant with this baby and she represents herself. She fucking wins. And she is amazing and a badass. And like all the problems she endured in the years after, addiction, poverty, etc., mental health, don't take away from the fact that she was just a courageous, badass motherfucker. And from the time Tupac and his sister Set were young, she was reading them the New York Times, urging them on about education, taking them on field trips, speaking to them about Black empowerment, about self-empowerment, about watching out for this, watching out for that. And everything you see from Tupac when it comes to sort of Black empowerment, resiliency, is straight out of her mouth.
Yeah. Yeah, and kind of like with that I quote about just writing a more intimate sort of human portrait, I loved the way you sketch early Tupac because we have this image of him at the end of his life. But early on, he was just kind of a gawky, scrawny, really sensitive kid. And I loved how you were able to sketch that out because it cuts against the grain of what we know, and as a result, we feel a lot closer to him, probably to his truer self.
I love young Tupac. Like I love young Tupac. I love Baltimore School for the Arts Tupac. It's probably my favorite Tupac.
Yeah,
because he's just this like firefly floating around, and he's dancing to Don McLean, and he loves Kate Bush and Kool and the Gang and Stevie Wonder, and he's like this like. At home, he's living in abject poverty. He's living in a place that gets 120 degrees in the summer, row house, and frigid in the winter. And he's embarrassed of where he lives. And he has rats. I mean, his sister talked to me about the sound of just rats along the floorboards. And like, that's his reality. And every day he's going to the School for the Arts. All of a sudden, it's these kids with purple hair and these kids walking around shirtless. And Tupac would show up. He had a baby bottle he used to chew on, and his fingernails would be painted, and he had this really bad but endearing high top fade with a peroxide strip, and he just like, I mean, Young Tupac is the best. He's just the best.
Yeah, well, you get a sense that as great as great a musician as he would become, like maybe his true calling seemed to maybe be acting.
Oh, I mean, yes. First of all, if you've ever seen Juice, you know how good he is. And if you've ever seen, like, I might get some hate mail for this, hate letters. Poetic Justice is not a good movie. We watched it again somewhat recently. I remember liking it as a younger person. Poetic Justice is a bad movie. It's not a good John Singleton movie. It's corny. It's confusing. It doesn't make any sense. Janet Jackson, very wooden. Tupac is awesome in that movie. Tupac owns that movie, carries that movie. Another movie is Gridlocked with Timothy Roth. So Timothy Roth is one of the great actors of our time. Tupac is right there with him, you know? And I interviewed Jim Belushi because he was in Gang Related with Tupac. And Jim Belushi, who loved Tupac, said, I thought he was one or two movies away from Academy Award. Like I thought he was that good of an actor. And that all starts. He loved acting. He loved being in front of people. His audition to get into Baltimore School for the Arts, it's a really nerve-wracking situation. It's a grand ballroom. You have 4 teachers sitting there in chairs. It's basically like the audition scene from Back to the Future when Huey Lewis, and like he rocked it. And he walked off the stage and they stood up and clapped for him, which they did not do for people. He just had a thing about him. One of his classmates said to me something I love. She said he was the kind of kid who would gently remove a ladybug and place it on a leaf or something like that. Like that was him. He was this tender, young, loving, theatrical kid.
Yeah, yeah, and there's I love early on too how he really locked into Vincent Van Gogh and Don McLean's Vincent. And one of his early colleagues said, like, if you listen to that song, being Vincent, you hear the lyrics. He completely identified with being Vincent Van Gogh, a tortured artist with a lot to say and no one listening. And that further burrows into who he was.
Oh man, I mean, it's just 100. I'm happy. I love talking about this. This is actually my first real Tupac interview, and I mean, I've lived this for 3 years, right? And I honestly feel people who are like Tupac, thug life Tupac, and blah blah. That certainly was a part of him, but that developmental Tupac, you have to understand. Like, and also as a white guy writing this book, it really was an education. Standing in front of the row house he lived in Baltimore, you're like, shit, this is bad. Like, this is really fucking bad, right? The places he lived, really bad. And every day he's living this hellscape in Baltimore, in this row house, hearing gunshots outside his door, drug dealers outside his door, his mom addicted to crack. And he goes to this school, this beautiful school, and his classmates are a mix of wealthier white kids and a lot of poor to middle class black kids. And it's a comfort zone for him. And you can walk around and you can be whoever you want. There are no jocks at this school. It is all kids just like Tupac, singing in the hallway, doing performances in the hallway, talking about Kate Bush, talking about the Indigo Girls, talking about Public Enemy. It was him at his probably freest. And then every day he goes home and he's hit with the reality that my life is terrible.
Yeah. Say like being a white person and writing this book about the hip hop culture and Tupac. I imagine like you and Jonathan had some conversations too, him writing about King and Ali as well. What were those dialogues like to taking on these topics as someone who didn't have that lived experience?
Yeah, so Ike is a really good friend of mine and colleague, and we did talk a lot about it. And his thing was, you're going to get, you'll get some backlash, but you have to stand by your reporting. Mm-hmm. And I will say, his book is one of the great biographies of all time. So this is not a dogging it any way, shape, or form at all. I think there's a difference between Tupac as a black cultural icon and Martin Luther King as a civil rights figure. I think a lot of people in America, black Americans, especially who grew up during that time period, feel a sense of ownership in regards to Tupac in the best possible way. Like, this is our music. He is speaking for us. He endured our struggle. He is representing us in our struggle. And I think it is important for me as a white author who loves the music but didn't live the struggle to remind people as much as possible that these are the words and the thoughts of people I interviewed. This is not me, white sports writer Jeff Pearlman, telling you how you should feel about Tupac. These are the people who lived his life with him and who seem to understand him. And I'm trying to give them a place to express themselves.
Yeah, and in a way, it's new but not new for you because you've taken on prominent black sports figures. Sure. But maybe that just feels a bit more comfortable for you since you've been a sports writer for your whole career.
I think the thing is, like, Bo Jackson, nobody would say Bo Jackson was a figure of black self empowerment. They'd say he was a great baseball player. He's a black great baseball player. We should celebrate him. Blah blah blah. I think he's more, in a way, he's more of a symbol of Alabama and athleticism. Blah blah blah. Barry Bonds. I don't think anyone would say Barry Bonds was like a civil rights figure or a hero. So, but Tupac does represent something different than any of the athletes I've written about.
Yeah, there's a moment later in the book too, and this it just gets to like so many contradictions within him, which I found the most compelling part. There was a moment, after he had gotten into trouble, you seesaw between like sometimes where he's just being an ass, and then he comes around to being like profoundly enlightened. He comes to somebody and he's just like, we gotta. I'm blanking on the name he's talking to, but
It's
he's
Free Kelly.
yeah, and he's just like, we got to sell like tons of records because we got to get the voters. And it's just like, holy shit, that is profound to animate, their people in these locales, based on leveraging their celebrity and getting them active in their communities. And it's carried in the head of someone who's 23 or 24 maybe at the time.
Oh, wait, it's one of my favorite stories actually. Is basically he's touring, his group Thug Life is touring with Lords of the Underground, who are based out of New Jersey. And one of their members, their lead member, is Dupree Kelly. Great, great, great guy. Great interview. Awesome. Kelly was a couple years younger than Tupac, not much so. And they have one day they get into an argument. This is in, I think, Orlando, Florida. They get into an argument. And Dupree Kelly stands up to Tupac. You're not really supposed to stand up to Tupac. Tupac is the king of this tour. He's put it all together. It's his tour. Stands up to him. And he goes back to his hotel room after this argument, and he hears a knock on the door, and he looks out, and it's Tupac. Looks out the people, it's Tupac. He literally calls another member of Lords of the Underground. He says, "Yo, Pac's at my door." And the guy's like, "What does he want?" I'm like, "I don't know, but I'm just letting you know, basically, in case something happens, just so you know, Tupac's here." Doesn't know. Opens the door. Tupac has 240s with him, and he's like, "You gonna let a brother in or not?" And he's like, "Yeah, come on." Tupac sits down on the bed, and he's like, "You know you were wrong, right?" And Kelly doesn't say anything. And he's like, "But I admire you for standing up to me. Like, I love that you stood up for me and spoke your piece. That's what you're supposed to do." And then he goes into this long monologue about how we need to stand up for each other, and black people in America need to stand up for each other. We need to do this. We need to do that. We even need to think about being legislators. And Kelly's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "We need to run for office. We need to hold office. We need blah, blah, blah." And Kelly told me that speech, more than anything he experienced in his life, is why he decided to run for city council in Newark, New Jersey. And as we speak, he is Councilman Dupree Kelly.
That's amazing.
I got chills telling that story. I love that story.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then in the first third of the book, there's this great passage, and it's one of the best passages in the book. And you're like, everything about Tupac felt surprising and different. He was a black kid who loved theater. He was an artistic kid who couldn't sing. He was a shit talker who couldn't fight. He was a rapper who listened to Don McLean and Kate Bush. He was a mama's boy sleeping on a friend's couch. He took the bus from the jungle only to roll with the hippies and gays. He was rough and effeminate, upbeat and depressed. And to me, that's one of the best passages in the entire book, and sums up so many of the contradictions. And I imagine that was really illuminating for you, just in the totality of your research, to come across such distinctions within one person.
Yeah. I don't think he was fake. Like, it's interesting because I misspoke in an interview I did a while ago where I was like, "Oh, he wasn't a real blah blah, and he wasn't a real blah blah." And that's actually, I don't think he was ever fake. I think he had to fill a shitload of different roles. I mean, think about it. Most of us in our lives, let's say you're me, all right? And you have these different roles. Okay, here I'm a sports writer, and here I'm a dad, and here I'm going to the gym and I'm talking to a trainer. Let's just say they're not that different. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that big of a gap. Dad, writer, gym. Just an example. But Tupac was poverty with the rats, school with the wealthy kids, trying to be a rapper, trying to be this, trying to be that, trying to appeal to the 60-year-old white math teacher, trying to appeal to the 18-year-old hip hop art. Like, he just had a lot of lanes to walk through. And I think it was I don't know how he did it actually, but I mean, especially Baltimore and then Marin City, the different roads he traveled that were so wide from each other, and somehow being able to do it. I think it led to people thinking he was quote unquote fake, and he wasn't fake. He just was trying to fill a lot of roles at the same time.
Yeah, I think it speaks to his ambition and his survivorship because he just was truly kind of on his own to the often to the death. Like you would think that he would have been more of say his sister's advocate, but he had that tunnel vision of like I just need to get myself out of this situation, even if he was leaving behind like his sister as much as he cared about her.
Well, I thought talking to Set, it's one of the most memorable interviews I've had in my life. And it's really interesting because basically his younger sister and Tupac and Afeni are living in Marin City. They live in this complex in the jungle. Marin City is referred to as a jungle. It's public housing. And Tupac is almost never around. He's living in different friends. He's couch hopping. Afeni is heavily addicted to crack and oftentimes with her boyfriend. And Set, who's like 13 at this time, is basically living alone, raising herself. And when I talked to her, she talked about that sense of abandonment and how my brother, she wasn't mad. She wasn't mad at all, but she was like, my brother is doing his thing, trying to make it. My mom is here and I'm all alone. And it's really interesting because Layla Steinberg, who I referenced earlier, she was a key person in Tupac's life at this point. And she's doing everything to help him make it in music, help you make it, help you make it, help you make it. And when she read the book, she was really torn over in hindsight, how did I miss Set? Like, how could I be this adult helping Tupac and not see this young girl who's being raped, who's being abandoned, who's afraid to walk to school, who has no support whatsoever? How did I miss her? And I think Tupac, in hindsight, would probably say the same thing. That's just a guess, but
And also during the reporting of your book too, Stacey Robinson comes out with a 2023 sort of a state authorized biography. And what does that do to you in your work? You're like, did you know that was coming out, and just how do you're like, ah, shit, like here's this other thing that's
yeah,
that's coming along.
I don't know how. I mean, there've been other Prefontaine projects, obviously. Like you, I think the first thing you do. Didn't two pre-movies come out at like the exact same time? Am I
Yeah,
wrong about that?
97 and 98.
Yeah. So I had my Barry Bonds book came out 3 weeks after Game of Shadows, and that sucked. There was a little more of a gap here. I think the main thing is first, of course, you're like, fuck. I knew it ahead of time, but I was like, fuck. Then I read it and I was like, fuck, this is pretty good. Like this is not a bad book. Like she did a good job. And I think she was the third or fourth writer they hired to work on it. So they had multiple writers who came and went. I don't know the reason. And she put together a very good book. And then you remind yourself, which I think is important, is like this book is being issued by the estate. So it is going to be a somewhat sanitized version of his life and a version of what they want to put out there, which is totally fine. It's totally reasonable. It's a good book. I found it eye opening. I cited it often in the book. I invited her on my podcast. She never responded. That's okay. But I also knew there were a lot of people they didn't get. Like the state is not on good terms with Set, so Set didn't cooperate in the book. Yasmin Fula did not cooperate with the book. So for me, I go through despair, anger, read the book, highlight everything, write down names. Who do I need to talk to? And then I get in my fuck it stage. My fuck it stage is fuck it. I'm just going to bust my ass and do even better. That's what I tried to do. I'm not saying it is better. I tried.
Yeah. And in the book too, I would say a real inflection point for Tupac is when he takes on the role of Bishop in Juice and the Thug Life tattoo on his belly. Like that seems to be a moment in his life where it's a fork in the road, if you will, or a real inflection point. Yeah, how would you describe that moment in his life?
Well, I think Bishop is really interesting because a lot of people, like the narrative, the common Tupac narrative is he was going along in life, he plays Bishop in Juice, and then he changes and he becomes Bishop. And I interviewed Ernest Dickerson, who was the director of Juice. And I talked to a bunch of people I know in Hollywood just from my experience with Winning Time. And I was like, is it possible that you can like play a role and then become the role? Like, does that happen? In real life, does that happen? And people are like, you don't become it, but it can change you and change your outlook a little bit. And I do think Tupac really liked the response to Bishop. Like there is a visceral response to that character, more so than any other character in that movie. I mean, Bishop is the best part of Juice. I would argue Juice is not a great movie; it's a good movie. But Bishop, Tupac's role is A plus. He's ridiculously good in it. So I think that definitely impacted him. The Thug Life tattoo is a really funny story and kind of a disappointing one, which is people thought there was this narrative that he got the Thug Life tattoo to represent something. And the truth of the matter is, as sucky as this is, he got the Thug Life tattoo because he thought it was a cool tattoo. And he'd heard the term Thug Life from it. There was a guy in Marin City named Marku Reynolds who used to say it, a rapper dealer. He would say Thug Life. Different guys would say Thug Life. He liked it. So he got the tattoo across his chest in Houston, Texas. And he comes back, and his manager, Watani, is basically like, what the fuck is that? He's like, you don't like it? He's like, no, I don't like it. But then they came up with this sort of, in a way, narrative about it that Tupac really liked, which is, the hate you give, blah, 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 and this whole sort of, we're going to get people together and we're going to have this movement. And there was also part of it was Mutulu Shakur, who was imprisoned, who was a big role model in his life. And they talked about that. But the tattoo itself, as much as it sucks, was just him getting a tattoo he really liked. I'm going to get killed for that, but it is the truth. It's God's honest truth. And that does not come from me guessing. That comes from me interviewing a ton of people, including the tattoo artist.
Right. Well, you're talking about Bishop too. I mean, there are other actors who might be like method to really impart that stay in character, but in a way, it kind of went reverse. And in a way, like the character made him almost be like a method actor in real life, embodying a certain spirit that was fake to real.
Yeah, and I mean, I will say this: like, Bishop was not fake, and that part wasn't fake. Like, Tupac. So again, Tupac lived in Baltimore, moved to Marin before senior of high school, went to Tam High School. While he's in Marin, he basically has this moment. He actually has a moment where he's rapping and he does a rap battle, and he gets his ass kicked in a rap battle by some guy from the jungle, and he is devastated, and he asks a local crack dealer if he could follow him around for a week. And he basically vanishes for a week. Tupac vanishes for a week. He's literally not, he's staying with a guy named Demetrius Strickland. He's not showing up at the apartment. The people who live there, this guy August Terry interviewed is like, where the fuck is Tupac? I don't know where Tupac is. He shows up one day. He's like, Tupac, where were you? Like getting laid? And he's like, nah, man, I was following around this guy. And he followed around this guy, taking literal notes with a pen, how to be a rapper. Or not how to be a rapper, but how to be a thug, how to be tough, how to be a dealer, how to live that life. And I think he really sought to exemplify that in Bishop, in his music, and a little bit more in his persona, Juice and Post Juice.
I think probably some of the harder parts to report and write about were some of the alleged sexual abuse that took place, as well with a few of the women that you spoke with regarding this. Like, just take us to how there are moments of the reporting that I imagine are very fun, and then you're talking about this. This is like really sober, disturbing stuff.
Yeah, it sucks. He had the Ayanna Jackson alleged rape case that he went to prison for at Nels, and that was it's weird. You think about how you would respond to this at different points in your life, and like this woman factory gave him a blowjob on the dance floor at Nels, and I think it's so and so age. You'd be like, wow, she was asking for that, like dumb young frat bro kind of thing. Well, I mean, what do you expect? She was giving him a blow, but like you read more about it, and it's really over a couple of days where she comes back to his hotel at the Parker Meridian. Either way, whether he raped her or didn't rape her, it is not a good reflection on Tupac, because either he did or his friends did, and he was like, "What am I?" Because even in his interview with Kevin Powell on Vibe, he's like, "Well, I don't know what I was supposed to do." So that was bad enough, right? Like that was bad enough. But then, in like your not fun moment of reporting, I found a second accusation that was made 4 months earlier in Los Angeles by a woman at a club in LA, and she filed a full police report. I found a redacted copy and an unredacted copy, called the woman, interviewed the woman. The woman initially didn't want to talk to me. Then I showed her, I said, do you want to see the report? And she goes, yeah. And I showed it to her, and she was furious because it reminded her of what happened at the time. And basically what happened is, according to her, she needed a ride home. Her friends had abandoned her. It was her 21st birthday. She's kind of drunk. Tupac and his friends say they're going to drive her back to wherever she is. Her boyfriend lived at USC, was a football player. He's like, wait a minute, we got to stop at my place first. They stop there. He tells her to come in. He assaults her, and then they drive her home. And his friend assaults her too. And she filed a police report. She went right to the police after this happened. Files a police report, did the rape kit, And whoever the police officer was in charge, or the lieutenant was in charge, said that they didn't pursue it because they said she had a chance to escape and didn't. And when I showed her that, she was so fucking angry. She was like, I was 21, I was compromised, and I was drunk. Like, it wasn't that easy to just run away. So anyway, I find this police report, and I interviewed the woman. She finally talked to me, and she's like, I have nothing to gain by talking to you. There's nothing to gain in my life by talking to you. I'm telling you what happened. It factually happened. I certainly believe the woman, Ayanna Jackson, because it's almost the same exact circumstance. Again, it's weird. You probably can appreciate this. This is actually as true as it gets. From a book standpoint, a Tupac book standpoint, that story doesn't help me. Like, it doesn't sell books, and it allows people to say, you just hate Tupac. You're just hating on Tupac. Because everything now is a 20-second TikTok clip or Instagram clip. So it'd be like, this writer says blah, blah, blah. Well, fuck him. Fuck you. I'm going to come kill you if I see you. Like, I've already gotten death threats over this stupid book. And like, but as a biographer, what are you supposed to do? Like, what are you supposed to do? You're writing about this person's life. He went to prison for allegedly raping a woman, and here's another police report, almost exactly the same sort of incident, step by step. What are you supposed to do? So that's a story. I didn't enjoy reporting it. I don't know what else you're supposed to do as a journalist.
Yeah, exactly. And what do you spending a couple years with him and writing the book and going through however many countless rewrites go into this, and you're steeped in it. Just how do you feel about him, and what's your relationship to him, having gone through this process?
So I have a really, really close friend of mine is named Reggie Williams, and he runs Ambrosia for Hedge, which is a hip hop site. Very close friend. And he read the book, and he said it's a great book, but it made me really sad, right? And I would say, I'm not saying my book is great or not great, like that's not for me to say, but I feel sad. Like, Tupac's life was sad. More than anything, it was sad. He had sex the first time 14 years old with a cousin.
Yeah.
Second time with his mother's friend. It's sad. Like, this is not a happy book. And I felt like it was an eye-opening experience to me about trauma in America, in particular about Black trauma in America. And his sister said to me, he didn't die happy, he died alone. And all these users and all these takers and all these people wanting this and wanting that. And I kind of wish he remained, in a lot of ways, the 15-year-old kid inside the Baltimore School for the Arts, fluttering around, listening to Stevie Wonder and Don McLean, and that happiness and that hopefulness. Because I feel like a lot of that, even though the music was great, I think a lot of that was lost.
And speaking of like takers and users, there's Marion Knight too, who really
We call him Sugar Bear.
What's that?
We call him Sugar Bear.
Sugar Bear, yeah. So Sugar Bear, like, he really, he takes advantage.
Oh man, I mean, it's funny because they were, Tupac's Atron Gregory, who was the head of Digital Underground, who originally signed him, was trying to bail him out, and Suge Knight comes along, and he bails him out. And Tupac's like, he bailed me out, but the money was all. It wasn't like Suge Knight was being generous. That money was against his own earnings, his future earnings. So like, and Suge Knight, there's a really interesting moment. One of my favorites, wrong word, but one of my most telling moments in the book is he's filming Gang Related in LA. And one day, and Tupac loved being an actor. Like, he really loved being an actor. And he really clicked with the cast of Gang Related, really clicked with Belushi. It was a tight-knit set. And one day, Suge Knight pulls up in a new car on the set of Gang Related. And he makes this big production. Yo, Pac, keys for you. You're doing great, blah, blah, blah. Just want to give this to you. Oh, thanks, man, blah, 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 blah. Suge Knight drives off. And Tupac says to one of the employees, he's like, none of this is real. He's like, what do you mean? He's like, I don't own anything. This car, I'm sure, is leased. Where I live is leased. Everything's coming out. Like, I don't own anything. None of it is real. And I feel like that was Suge Knight in a way. Like, he did Tupac great musically. Like, All Eyes on Me is a great album. Machiavelli's a great album. He let him do the double album, all that stuff. But like, would I want to be? To me, Suge Knight is Don King and Donald Trump. He's just a guy who takes advantage of people.
Yeah. And, you're right in the, I believe in the intro, like, the mind of a biographer is overwhelmed by obsessiveness. In tackling his subject, one doesn't merely observe, he dives in, he chases, he craves, he crawls, he seeks. I love that sentiment. I think it's like there's the whole private eye nature of being a journalist, and specifically journalist when you're really leaning into a central figure. In what way are you kind of energized by this project to pursue what comes next?
I mean, it's funny because it's to me, I don't know if you feel this way. It's a lot of misery.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, do you not feel that or do you?
Oh yes. Chronic
It's so
misery.
oh, it's so much misery. It is so much misery. It is so hard. And I'm not saying I always have to say this. I'm not saying I'm a firefighter or policeman or a doctor or whatever. I'm not saying that. It's not natural. Like this is not a natural profession. Like writing for Sports Illustrated or traveling around covering baseball, cool. Locking yourself in your room for 3 years to focus on one person
Yeah.
is not mentally healthy and it's not natural. It's just not. So like I get psyched when I see the book, when the book comes out. It's fun, it's thrilling. Oh, you're gonna be on NPR, you're gonna be on whatever. Like that's great, it's fun, it's exciting. Leigh Montville, great writer, said to me years ago, he's like, it's an unnatural thing. You spend 2 years in a hole to come out for 2 weeks. Like it doesn't make sense.
Right.
But it's true. So what energizes me? To quote your favorite and mine, Jonathan Ive, I was complaining to him in the middle of Tupac research. We were eating at a place in LA, Crave Cafe in LA, and I sounded like the whiniest little wuss of all time. Oh, it's killing me. But he's like, you're getting paid good money to earn a PhD on Tupac. He's like, I was paid good money to earn a PhD on Martin Luther King. I would have done that for free. He's like, and you would do this for free too. And I was like, yeah, that's actually good. It's a good way of thinking of it. And that's kind of what keeps me going, to be honest.
And you and we shared an editor in Matt Harper, and he's just someone who's he's amazing, and his thumbprints are all over the front runner in the best possible way. He just got me. I always talk of when I talk about the book. I often use the collective plural of we. Like we did this because he was just such a great steward for the book, and it just what
Hey, I
was.
want to say that comes in handy if the book doesn't sell well. You could be like, we did this, Matt. Thanks, Matt.
Exactly. Say, hey, buddy, my scapegoat. But just what was your experience and in your dialogue to bring this and shape this and bring it to the world?
First of all, he's great. He's great. He's supportive. He's positive. He's upbeat. He believes in writers. I've had I've had some really bad editor experiences in my life, and he's one of the best. Him and Peter Hubbard, who's the big gun there, like they're just really supportive and really good. And for me, it's honestly about having a group of people. I have like a support staff that's always been kind of the same through the years. My wife is gold. My son Emmett, who's now a college sophomore at Northeastern, loves hip hop. Very important. My daughter Casey named the book. You have these people who are just support staff and people who you believe in and people who believe in you who will be honest with you. And he's just added to that. He's great. He's great. I have nothing. Rare is the time that I have nothing negative to say about a publisher and editor, and this is one of those times. He's great.
Yeah, to your point of echoing what you said, I usually write this in the acknowledgement of whatever thing I'm writing, but it's just like writing books is a team sport.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Well, I mean, also like my wife did not when we got married. I don't think she signed up to hear about Tupac for 3 years nonstop. Like she she can tell the stories. Like she can tell the stories now as well as I can. Like that's just part of that drill. She's not even a Tupac fan. I mean, she likes some of his music, but she's not. But now she knows everything about him. So.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, as I bring these conversations down for a landing, I always love asking the guests just for a recommendation, like a fun recommendation for the listeners out there. And it can be a book or it can just be like something cool that's making you happy. So I would just extend that to you as we close out.
I'll combine those two things. There's a book. I was in Dublin. My son had to spend a semester in Dublin. And I'm in a bookstore in Dublin. You ever been to Dublin?
No, but gosh, I want to go to Ireland bad.
Highly recommend. I'm in Dublin in a bookstore. I'm looking for a book. I see a book just there. I go to sports, and it's called Fighter by a guy named Andy Lee, who was a pretty good fighter, like a solid professional boxer, won a belt. The cover was awesome. I buy this book. It is maybe the best sports book I've ever read. Fighter by Andy Lee. This is the funny part. I go on TikTok like midway through the book. I'm in London on that same trip. Staying at my sister-in-law, my cousin-in-law's house. No, sister-in-law's house. My wife's sister's house. My wife's sister, yeah, anyway. I'm in the basement there, and I love this book. And I do a TikTok video. And I'm like, this might be the best sports book I've ever read. This book, Fighter by Andy Lee, is just freaking insane. It's so good. The TikTok video gets like 300,000 views. It's pretty high. He reaches out to me, Andy. He's like, hey, I saw your thing. That's amazing. I had him on my podcast. I get a reach out from the publisher, and they're like, hey, we're thinking of releasing this in America now. Can we use your quote on the top of the book?
Oh my
So
God.
the other day, they sent me a copy of Fighter with best sports book ever, Jeff Pearlman. And all of this happened because of a TikTok video
Jesus.
in a basement in London. And it is a great, not good, great book. Fighter by Andy Lee.
Oh my God. That brings us all full circle to book promotion, TikTok, and virality that drives these things.
You know what I need? I need my me to say, for someone to say best book ever in Dublin, and we'll publish it in Dublin. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for carving out time to do this. The book's amazing. So great to just talk shop and talk some Tupac here and how you go about doing the amazing work you do. So just thank you so much.
Ah, thanks, Brendan. I appreciate it.
Yes. Awesome. Thanks to Jeff, and thanks to you for making it this far, if you've made it this far. The name of the book, again, is Only God Can Judge Me. The Many Lives of Tupac Shakur. It is published by Mariner Books. You can learn more about Jeff at jeffpearlman.com and follow him on a bouquet of social media platforms. Pick a card, any card. I'm about ready to sunset book events for 2025. Like, I'll do a one-off here and there, and I do have something cool coming up in November. But the book has been out for 5 months, and I'm unsure what more I can do to drum up any more juice for it or to keep its momentum going. It has been a slow burn book tour, if you want to call it that. I think many of us can attest that sometimes these events feel, on balance, pointless. Like, it's a lot of out-of-pocket money to visit faraway bookstores, and none of them pay for your travel, nor are they expected to, but all of this shit is out of pocket. It all costs us anything. Authors don't get a cut of book sales. Not from the bookstore or from the actual sale of the book. I think readers still think that every time a book is sold, like we get a cut, like we get a check every month or something. Nope. I still have to sell like 38,000 more books before I see an extra penny. You know, we don't get any tangible benefit from doing these events. Not really. The venue gets all the benefit with very little risk. You know, they open their doors, and by and large, they are warm hosts. But for the most part, they're giving you a roof and a microphone, and good luck. Many of my book events have been the lick my wounds variety, which always feels like a waste of time, superseded only by the embarrassment of sitting there giving your talk to like 1 or 2 people, which is just awkward. It's extremely awkward. You know, when I was in Bend this past weekend, I thought I was going to have my first total no-show. Like, you know, I was pushing it out there, and then, you know, they were resharing, and it was a Sunday, and the weather was nice, and midday. I was up there by myself in the room, nobody around. I took a picture of all the empty chairs, like right at 1 o'clock when I was supposed to go on. There was nobody. Then one person came in, and we shot the shit for about 5 minutes. Then finally, after about 10 to 15 minutes, 5 more people came in. And I did my little talk. It was fine. It was fun. You know, I give the talk with the same energy for 5 people as I would for 50. You know, it's the same thing. But man, you think of all the gas money, the food money, and the time, all to sell the venue 5 books of stock that I had to provide, and you start to question, like, what the point of all this shit is. Yeah, I realized what the point was while noodling in my journal. You're not really selling the current book. You are, but you're not really. What you're really doing is selling the next one. You're hopefully making a good enough impression that these people will want to follow your career, that the bookstores and those venues think that you're kind of a cool person to deal with. And then, you know, the people who do show up, if they email you, you know, write them back right away. Express how grateful you are that they even came out. Even if it felt a little weird that you were giving this talk that is, you know, for a big audience, but you do it for like 3 people. As an audience, they couldn't really blend into each other. So there's too few people. So I don't know. I imagine sitting in the audience is a little weird. Maybe I'm projecting. But you do these events because you never know what momentum they create. I was just invited to be the first of a series of talks in Eugene this year. First in this year's series. It's not like the first ever series. A history pub. And it should be very well attended as it's part of the university. Stuff like that doesn't happen without showing up at every single event, big or small, over the course of your promotion window. Also, over the years, you hear some of these other, like, these popular bros out there, influencer types, who are like, you have to learn how to say no. To that I say, oh, okay, maybe. But if you're like a little shit like me, the only answer is yes. It's yes to everything. I don't care if your podcast has 1 subscriber and it's yourself and you invite me. The answer is yes. You know, I'll never forget Austin Kleon when I had him on the show back in, 2018 or 19 or whenever. When I was trying to book him, he asked how big my audience was. He's the only person of nearly 500 people who's ever asked what size the audience is as a condition as to whether he would entertain the show or not, whether it was worth his time or not. I fucking lied to him because what the fuck kind of question is that? That always irked me. I've done a lot of podcasts, and I check to see what their reach is. But it's never a condition that they have a big audience for it to be worth my time. Like I said, you could be the only subscriber to your show. I'll go on your show, and then when it's out, I will put it in my newsletter and put it on my website and push it out on social media, because that's what you do. Saying yes is about being part of the literary community. Showing up isn't always about you. You know this. I guess there can come a point where if it's very obvious you're being exploited or taking advantage of, then you might want to set some boundaries. Throw in a rider in there so you can get some like M&Ms. But for the vast majority of us, we're not ever going to pack a theater, or headline a book festival, or be the kind of draw where it's only fair for them to pay for your travel and your hotel and maybe a kombucha or something. Bottom line, boil it down. Is there anything cooler than getting to do what we do when we do it? Think about it. Like Jeff said in this podcast, that anecdote he's recalling from Jonathan Ive. He was like, you're getting paid good money to earn a PhD in Tupac. And it's like, you would do it for free. Whether we get paid good money or not, there's still no better work than this shit, right? Right? So stay wild, see an efforts. And if you can't do interviews, see ya.